You're listening to the fastest growing travel podcast in the world.
That's facts. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alun and I'm here with the ever-elevated Adam.
I'm on the verge of getting a nosebleed. We're ever so high, Alan.
Why is that, cos?
Because we're at 38 floors.
Yeah.
Is it 38 or 37?
We're on 38. The building has 44, and then there's some penthouses up top. I met a man in the elevator who was going to the penthouse, and he was ever so flamboyantly dressed. I knew he was going to the penthouse before I even seen which button he pushed.
What was he wearing? Go on, talk me through it, the outfit.
A monocle, a gold chain, some diamonds in his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, we are, of course, still in Manila, still in the Philippines, ruining the decision to extend now at what we've dubbed Tripology HQ.
Yeah.
The building is so tall and the lifts are so slow that over the last few days, when we've been gallivanting around the building, around the foyer, just sort of moseying around the area outside the hotel, I do feel like I've spent a ridiculous amount of time in the elevator. And I know that we spoke about it on the last show, but a few things have happened to me over the last 2 days. I honestly feel like being in those elevators, I've spent more time with them than I have with you.
More time with the elevators?
No, with the people inside the elevators.
Okay.
You end up spending so much time with the people you're in the lift with that towards the end of it, you know sort of their life story if you end up talking.
Have you got a new item you'd like to announce? Stories from the elevator?
Yeah, we're doing a spin-off in the Patreon section. No, I mean, it's been so awkward a few times because, you know, when you go into a lift, I don't know how many travel podcasts are talking about the dynamic inside an elevator.
A few.
But we're about to.
Yeah.
There's been a few occasions when there's been so few people in there, but no one talks.
Yeah, well, that's normal, though, in an elevator, isn't it? It'd be weirder if you got into an elevator and everyone was like, hey, a newbie.
I mean, I don't know what the psychology is behind it. I'm sure there's a Scandinavian word that sort of explains it really well. But I feel like when there's many people in there, and some people, there's sometimes there's loads of people in there, aren't there? I mean, probably as many as 15 or 16 people.
Peak hours.
And everyone faces the same way. No one talks to each other. And if anyone accidentally touches anyone else, then it gets really tense. But then the fewer people you're with, it's even more awkward if no one talks. But I feel like it encourages conversation. And I don't know if you remember, but we did speak to a lady in an elevator. And I have since become very fond of her. And we've ended up seeing each other no less than...
Have you?
We've ended up seeing each other no less than 4 times. But the thing is, it's not just like bumping into each other in the street. You're spending probably 15, 20 minutes with this person in an elevator. So if conversation gets going, you end up knowing their whole bloody life.
I make it a matter of recourse not to speak to anyone any of the time. You say that we met someone in the elevator. I deliberately don't speak to anyone. I face the wall. I think about where I want to go. I don't want anyone to talk to me.
Where I want to go, which is usually just up or down.
It's usually the 38th floor. Well, unfortunately, this elevator has a knack of sometimes dropping me off at 27, 26. I once had to get off at 9.
Yeah. No,
Go on, so tell me about your new friend.
Well, she's called Phoebe. She's getting a shout out on the show. I've only known her for 3 days.
Yeah.
You've already met her. She started talking to us in the first time we met because she was complaining about the elevator as well. And she said it's the slowest lift in Makati City, which is sort of an area of Manila that we're in. Now, we bumped into each other again a few times and we had a little chat. Oh, yeah, you're that guy from the UK, whatever. And then I saw her yesterday. And I thought, it was a really nice sort of interaction, me and her sort of chit-chatting and stuff. But like I said, it's sort of 15 minutes. And she told me that she's from California, or she's actually from Manila originally, but moved to California, spent loads of time there. And she said, oh, you're from the UK. Yeah, I haven't got many good things to say about the UK, I'm afraid.
Quite rude of her, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, as 2 people who don't live in the UK for that reason, there are loads of things to do in the UK. That's not what we're saying. But her words were, this is verbatim, England is really boring. In London, there's nothing to do apart from go to museums and see some green spaces. And Wales is also boring as well.
Why did she come in on Wales?
I don't know, just because it's somewhere...
Did you give her my driving licence or something? She saw that I spelt with a U.
Yeah. No, it's just because it's somewhere that she'd been. So she was sort of weighing in. She said, the UK isn't like the US where you can do loads of things all the time. She thinks the UK is way too expensive as well. And then she started asking me some more personal questions. And she said, so are you sort of single? And I said, wow.
How old is she?
Well, she's probably, I don't know if she listens to the show. I deliberately didn't mention the show just in case.
Probably not then.
But I'd be surprised if she was younger than 60.
Okay. So she said, are you single? Yeah.
But she said, are you here alone? And I said, no, I'm visiting my best friend. And
you're the guy that you saw who was staring at the opposite wall, not saying anything.
And she said, is he handsome?
Oh.
And is he single?
I'm obviously not memorable because she saw me.
It was amazing. I thought, oh my God. I said, yeah, he is handsome. We met together in the lift. And she was like, oh, okay, so what are you sort of doing here and all this sort of stuff. And we walked out of the elevator together and she said, all right, well, I'll see you around. Maybe.
Is she on the 38th floor as well?
No, she's on the 19th.
Why did you walk out together then?
Because we were going down.
Oh my God.
Does the story. Yeah, for anybody who's worried about continuity there, we were on our way down.
Yeah.
And she was on her way to purchase one cigarette, the very last cigarette before she gives up for the rest of her life.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions.
Go on.
Do you think she is indeed going to be giving up?
Yes.
Do you think that is her last cigarette?
I do think, because I was there when she purchased it. Do you know in the Philippines, guys, you can buy one cigarette at a time?
Yeah.
You knew that?
Well, I knew in a lot of countries that's true.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually only true of countries where people accrue extraordinary amounts of wealth that you can buy multiple cigarettes in a pack and that's it. In Brazil, you buy one cigarette. Philippines, you buy one cigarette. Buying one cigarette is surprisingly common.
Okay,
so you do think it's going to be a last one?
Yeah, as a non-smoker, obviously, I wouldn't know that. I do think it is going to be her last one. She seemed genuine. She seemed sincere.
Do you feel the way that she feels about Wales and England, about other countries? You personally?
Do I think that places are not worth visiting at all?
Yeah.
And that they're boring? I don't think so.
You don't feel that way about any other countries?
I think every country I've been to has something about it that would make it worth visiting, I would have said. Maybe I've been to the vast majority of those countries that I'm interested in already, but I'm sure there's a plethora of countries that have got absolutely bags to offer.
So fundamentally, you think she's just wrong?
No, I like her as a person. I think she's awesome. And I'm really glad we got an opportunity to bond.
I like you as a person. I still think you're fundamentally wrong quite a lot of the time.
You can only, what do we always say, Alan? What do we always say? You can only judge a place by your experiences in it.
Okay, fair enough. Because I was going to ask you, if you met someone from a country that you thought was not that great, would you tell them the way you felt about that place?
Right, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't have said that, especially not in the first conversation. Maybe after 15 or 20 minutes in a lift when you've run out of things to say already, we might get onto, a subject about their own country and where they're from. But no, I wouldn't have done that at all. I wouldn't have done that.
Did you respect the bravery that she chose to do that?
You can tell she's lived in California, let's just say that. Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Whatever that means, I'm not going to go into any more detail.
Take from that what you will. Okay, so we've been riding a lot of elevators. What else have we been up to? We've been on little sojourns ourselves, haven't we?
I thought you were going to say what else have we been riding.
Yeah, well.
That was a nice little seg, wouldn't it?
It would have, but a shame it's a missed opportunity. The show is live, so.
We took a jeepney for the first time yesterday, didn't we, together? I've taken them before, but to my knowledge, you hadn't ridden a jeepney before?
I've ridden many things that look like a jeepney and behave quite like a jeepney, but because they're in different countries, their naming is quite different. So like a matatu in the African continent.
Okay.
Matatus are basically jeepneys. They're sort of like souped up buses.
Yeah, sure.
That you sort of jump on.
Yeah, so
Pass the money forward.
Yeah, I was same sort of system.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was going to talk a little bit about that. I mean, I'm sure that many of you listening have already been to the Philippines, and maybe if you haven't, you've probably seen jeepneys anyway, because they're quite iconic. But they are a mode of public transport, and they're essentially...
Very public transport.
They're essentially a converted American military vehicle. Did you know that? So after the Second World War, there was a fleet of American military jeeps left here, and the Filipino people converted them, and now, I mean, they're known for their sort of crazy colours and designs. Some of them are chromed up to the teeth, and they're really, really cool. But they're almost like limousine-esque, aren't they?
Yeah, they're long.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
like a limousine.
Quality. They're like, they share the length of a limousine.
Yeah.
Not the luxury, though.
Absolutely, or the price.
Mm.
I mean, they're pretty cheap. How much did we pay? I think they start from around 13 pesos.
Which is about, sort of 10 pence maybe.
Yeah, about the price of one cigarette. And you get on. They kind of stop like buses, don't they, at various places around the city?
Yeah, although notably, we had an aim to get to a specific location and it required 3 individual jeepney journeys to get there.
Yeah.
So not the most efficient method of transportation. I think if a public transport system results in you having to take 3 of it to get somewhere, that constitutes being broken.
Yeah, I mean, logistically, I'm not sure they are the most efficient.
Still better than National Rail in the UK, though.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about getting one. You sort of just hop in the back. And there's sometimes the sides are missing. You could say that they're akin to windows. You've usually got a driver up the front who's invariably on his phone, and then a front seat. And then you can fit as many, I've been doing some reading, but there weren't that many in the ones we got, as many as 24 passengers.
What, the internet reckons that 24 passengers is the maximum?
Yeah. Okay,
I reckon that we had about 6 people on our row.
Yeah.
And one of them was sat predominantly on my knee.
Well, it's interesting.
I'm seeing him now.
It's interesting you should mention this because I was looking at the way you were sitting in the jeepney.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. Yeah, what did you think?
And I thought your knees were quite prominent in the corridor.
Flared?
Well, yeah, I mean, Filipino people, generally speaking, not to offend anyone listening, but they do tend to be slightly smaller than we are.
Right.
So maybe it was kind of just noticing that our legs or your legs were sticking out further than theirs.
Oh, you think I was slumped forward a bit too much? Like my knees were jutting out into the...
They were kind of protruding out because there was still a couple of spaces up top. And, just imagine this if you're not ridden a jeepney before. You kind of climb in the back and then there's one like corridor. And not everyone shuffles up when someone gets out, do they? So sometimes people have to walk past almost the entire carriage or whatever you call it.
Yeah, sort of like down in a crouch.
Yeah, and past people's legs. It's kind of like shuffling out of a cinema aisle.
Did you think it was rude of me to have my legs forward?
I didn't think it was rude because I'm not sure it caused that many problems.
Yeah.
But you kind of see everyone following suit and, putting their back right up to the thing and whatever. So there's maybe an ethical, there's some like jeepney etiquette.
Yeah, I mean, I was asleep for quite a lot of that journey.
Did you fall asleep?
Yeah, completely unconscious.
Really?
Did you not realise?
No, well, obviously not. No, I had no idea.
No, I mean, the journey must have been 10 minutes in one of the jeepneys and I was out like a light.
Oh my goodness. And no one stole anything from you?
I felt like you robbed me of some of my dignity. But, Adam's bed where we're staying is quite rickety and noisy.
Oh, my God.
And you don't sleep very much. So you kind of wake me up a little bit in the morning and it results in some problematic jeepney behaviour later in the day. It's like a snowball effect. So were my legs far into the carriage or did you wake me up in the middle of the night? Not sure which one's true.
Yeah, chicken and the egg. I have noticed that actually, mate. And I did take the opportunity this morning. I was tossing and turning and you were still snoozing and stuff. And I thought I can't possibly make this much noise and expect it to be okay. So I decided to go down to the swimming pool and spent an hour swimming instead.
Well, that's nice of you. I have started using the mouth tape again, taping my mouth closed at night, as of you.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
like to do that together. Fans of the show might think that's very, very strange, but it's been a recurring theme in the history of Tripology that me and Adam tape our mouths closed at night. Has a number of health benefits. It's really worth a try. So that's been good, hasn't it? But I have found myself blowing through the tape in the night. I've had a bit of a stuffy nose, so I found myself like waking up to my cheeks inflating as I'm pushing air outwards.
Yeah, just puffing the bits of tape off, up into the sky. No, I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. And I would encourage you guys, if you've not mouth taped before, do give it a spin. I do it because you do it, and I've used myself as a guinea pig, and therefore, can feel the health benefits. So I don't sleep a lot, but the sleep I do get is...
Well, we're the only travel show in the world that talks about lifts, jeepneys and mouth taping all in the first half. God knows what will happen in the second half. All I know is this podcast is growing at a rate slightly faster than any other travel podcast on the planet. And that's going to continue when we see you after a brief meditation break.
Alan, we should make a place where fans of the show can listen to episodes, read articles and maybe contact us.
Done it.
What?
Tripologypodcast.com.
Oh. Should we put a link in the description?
It's already there.
You are good.
Like a Californian woman insulting a colonialist nature within the confines of a 39-floor elevator, allow your conscious mind to return into your brain as we embark on the rest of the episode, everyone. What an eclectic first half. And it's about to get slightly less eclectic because there's an item on the show. It's not done very often, but when it is done, boy oh boy, does it evoke a huge reaction. The item is, of course,
rice for breakfast.
Rice for breakfast? You can't have rice for breakfast.
Okay, mate, we know that going to a new country is an opportunity to talk about a new cuisine. And we are in the Philippines, somewhere that gets a bit of a bad rap. I mean, Filipino food, by and large, I'm going to go on record to say this. I've had a lot of great Thai food, a lot of great Vietnamese food. We've had some fantastic Filipino food. Do you think it's fair to judge Filipino food against other cuisines in Southeast Asia?
I, with food, basically just absorb the opinions of Anthony Bourdain, the late great, as my own. And he said that he thinks Filipino food lacks identity.
Sure.
I think he said that, or he alluded to that. And I'm going to absorb that as my own opinion. I think it is a strong cuisine.
Yeah.
But because it's got Spanish influence, it's got Latin American influence, it's got...
American, of course, we've seen.
I just think it lacks a little bit of identity.
Yeah, it's strange. So our biggest bugbear up until this point, because we have had some great food, is that it seems like the sort of food you might eat with chopsticks.
Yeah.
And we are lovers of chopsticks.
I love it.
but none of the dishes that we've had, apart from the Chinese food we had last night, did we eat with chopsticks.
When I was given a pair of chopsticks by that Chinese man, it made me happier than I had been previously. So it's from that bit of feeling alone that I know I really miss chopsticks.
It's quite funny actually talking about chopsticks and using them, because I remember when, what would it have been 10, 11 years ago or whatever, I came back home for the first time after being in Southeast Asia for a total of 8 months or something, having learned to use chopsticks quite well. And I remember going back having dinner with my friends or family or whatever. This was back when, people in the West didn't use chopsticks that much.
Yeah, and if they did, they tied elastic around the top so they could use it.
And I remember thinking at a dinner table, oh, yeah, should we get some Chinese food or should we get some... It was like a sort of one-upmanship kind of puffing my chest out. What, you can't use chopsticks? Are you still using a knife and fork for Chinese food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that a breakupable offence on the first date?
If the girl doesn't know how to use chopsticks?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty weird because she'd probably be Asian, so. It's unlikely, Alan.
So that's for breakfast.
Yeah. No, breakupable. I mean, I got to hold my hands up, mate. I do notice the way people hold cutlery.
Yeah.
I am one of those. I grew up in a household, and Dad, I know you're listening. I grew up in a household where the way people hold cutlery was important. You might say it was enforced. If it wasn't enforced, it was joked about until, you changed your behaviour. And I do think that the fork goes in one hand, the knife goes in the other. If you hold it in a strange way, I see some people holding forks like it's the first time they've ever seen a fork in their life.
Well, I have a very, very close friend who dated someone who held a fork and a knife in a very unusual way, and it did put them off.
That's amazing. Are you gonna? Well, we'll maybe talk about that in the Patreon section.
Yeah.
If you could show us the way that this person holds a fork.
Yeah, I'd love to in the Patreon section.
But talking about things that are going to put people off, we have got one item to go into detail about today, and it is iconic. It is controversial. It is incredibly popular. We're going to talk about the balut.
Oh, I've heard of the balut. I've seen the balut. I've watched you eat the balut.
Yeah, have I? Well, it actually, no, it was because it was a tripping point blimmin' forfeit kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah, so the forfeit was that I had to eat balut, and if you don't know what balut is, are you going to make me describe what it is?
I think that's good.
Live on air. It is a fertilized and incubated duck egg. It kind of turns into a duck embryo.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound great, does it?
It doesn't sound great. I think maybe important to say off the top of the item that the way that we eat eggs in the West, exclusively unfertilized, that's just a cultural difference. There are places that eat and enjoy eggs that have been fertilized primarily.
Yeah. And as two people that have worked on not just chicken farms, but the same chicken farm, we know our way around an egg, don't we?
Yep, and who knows whether some of those were fertilized or not. If we're being honest, we worked on a farm in which there were roosters in with hens. Let's call them hens.
I don't mean to use the French language.
And I would be surprised if there wasn't at least a little bit of fertilization going on from what I saw.
Oh, from the atrocities that the roosters were committing on an hourly basis.
Yeah. And we would take those hens, eggs, gather them up, and deliver them around the local neighbourhood.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've never worked on a chicken farm, I would encourage you to do so. Some of the stuff you're going to see is going to be eye-opening, isn't it? It's not nice. Roosters really are. They're bastards. They're horrible.
Not a huge fan of the rooster community here at Tripology. We hate to say it, and we know that some of you guys subscribe to our Patreon. But roosters, cut it out.
But back to the balut. So incredibly popular. You see them sold on street corners in the evening. Usually just one vendor, one seller with a cart.
Yeah.
And they've got a number of eggs. And these have been, like I say, they've been fertilized and then incubated.
That's the important thing, actually, because obviously a fertilized egg, as we saw on the farm, if they're taken day one, then it's just a normal egg. A balut specifically has to be kept warm for an extended period of time and incubated in order to become balut.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that appetizing an idea, I don't think. Difficult for people that have never experienced that sort of thing, and we might go into the ethics as well. Apparently they are of Chinese origin, dating back to the 1830s. And what's quite interesting about this is that in the Philippines now, I mean, we see them on street corners, incredibly popular sort of street food, if you like. Some people eat them every day without fail. I mean, when we were down there, we saw 2 ladies just of an evening, and one lady had 3 in front of us.
In the time it took you to eat a balut, I saw 4 other people eat one.
Yeah, and like I say, it's even it's usual to have more than one.
Yeah.
But in the olden days, back in the 1830s, whatever it was, back in China, it was usually for the rather wealthy. It was seen as a delicacy and something that was for the higher classes and that sort of stuff. So usually it sort of happens the other way around now. Things that were for poor people are now become really expensive, like oysters.
Yeah, avocado.
Really?
Well, I mean, avocados are a dime a dozen in some places. Now they're considered a luxury fruit.
Thanks to Pret a Manger.
Yeah.
No, so going back to the balut, I mean, it's still served in the shell. You still eat it in the shell. You can buy one. I mean, they're super, super cheap. 27 pesos, I think we paid. So, pretty cheap.
He says we because we use the company card. Talk me through the specific visceral process of consuming the balut from start to finish. I couldn't help but notice you cracked it on a nail.
Yeah, so the cart itself was just a wooden kind of table, if you like. I didn't really know what to expect on the inside, is how I was feeling. It was my first balut, and it's important to say this. I've been to the Philippines before. This was 10 years ago, and I missed the opportunity to try balut. And I do regret that. It's one of my food regrets. I do think you should try if you're really interested in food and food culture. Now, I picked up the egg, and the lady was kind of just egging me on.
If you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah, thanks very much. But I cracked the egg on a nail, and I didn't realise at the time that there's actually soup inside.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this liquid, this salty liquid. There's a little bit of sweetness to it, actually. And you want to make sure you save that because it is tasty. So you crack it on a hard surface. Make sure you just crack the top off.
Yeah.
Suck out the soup.
Yeah. You say soup.
Yeah, it's not.
It's the amniotic fluid of the duck embryo.
Yeah, okay. I prefer soup.
Suck out the amniotic fluid of the duck embryo.
Yeah, exactly. Which is pretty delicious. Not too dissimilar to maybe a xiaolong bao or some sort of Chinese soup dumpling, I think, if we can say that. And then you peel away the shell up until the point you can sort of see what you're eating, or not. And then you just take bites out of it.
It looked to me like quite a vascular yolk.
Yeah.
Attached to a sort of gelatinous duck baby shaped.
Yeah. Obviously, the older the egg is, or the longer it's been incubated for, the further developed the duck embryo is.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's important to bear in mind, isn't it? Because if you don't want to be confronted with almost
feathers,
you get feathers, a head, a beak, almost a fully formed duckling.
Yeah. Okay.
That is quite confronting. But then there's also this hardened albumin bit at the bottom, which is more like cartilage, I would say. If you've ever had cartilage, a bit of gristle, It's difficult to eat, difficult to chew. I wouldn't have said that part is the most enjoyable experience, but it is surprisingly tasty, I will say that.
Well, talk me through the flavours. I do want to talk about the ethics of balut a little bit.
Okay.
Talk me through the flavours of the actual yolk-duck combination.
Yeah, so it's pretty rich. I mean, it is also often seasoned with a bit of salt and also some vinegar. You can, there's other sauces and stuff you might use, but a salty egg yolk for me is really delicious. So if you like salty egg yolks, you'll love this. It's probably a little bit richer than a normal egg yolk. And then, of course, you've got the flavour of the soup as well, which, as I said, has got a sweetness to it. It's obviously quite eggy. And, yeah, the texture is something akin to, I don't know, I don't want to say sort of an organ or meat, but it's got some texture to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we should weigh in on the ethics of it, because people will be very, very interested. It's one of the more controversial things you've ever eaten, probably.
Yeah, there's probably a top 10 we could talk about, and maybe balut would be in there. But I don't know if I want to put it in that category. So maybe a little sort of discussion about it would help me do that.
Well, I think that people like to put balut in a category of unethical eating because obviously it's an embryo.
Yeah,
so it's a very, very young potential to be an animal.
Yeah, sure. It's a living thing, right?
And they're just boiled.
Yeah.
So that as an optic looks bad, doesn't it? It's an embryo that's boiled alive.
Yes. Yeah, I can totally understand. I think because things to me in terms of eating animals in general or consuming animal proteins and having sort of a knowledge of livestock farming and the meat industry, for me it's a lot more sort of horizontal.
You would be of the perspective that if you consume animal products, then balut is no different because it's the potential to be an animal.
Yeah, I think this probably comes with eating many dishes around the world and traveling and experiencing food with other cultures.
Yeah.
For me, it is much more horizontal. I really do believe where this sits with me is that if you are comfortable eating meat and you eat it on a regular basis, I think you probably should be a little bit more open-minded to eating something like this. I'm not for one second saying they're absolutely exactly the same, because there are some people that will eat maybe mutton but not lamb, or they'll eat beef but not veal or whatever. And I think their argument is that it hasn't had a life,
but opportunity for life. I mean, well, I suppose it depends whether you consider that embryo has the capacity to feel anything at all at the stage at which it's boiled. I think that lots of people would argue no.
Yeah,
it's just the potential for a life, and then it's ended by boiling. But there are some people that think, that it does feel pain, and that's problematic.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of people listening to this might resonate with them. But if we all asked ourselves more questions about what we ate on a regular basis, I do really believe that more and more people would start becoming vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah,
because it's. If you think it's unethical to boil a duckling alive, whether it's about to become a duckling or if it has lived on the earth for, I don't know, a week or a month or whatever, then where's the threshold? How long does a chicken or a duck have to live before it's okay to kill it for then you to eat it?
Well, that's it. I would argue that it's more unethical to consume badly sourced, battery farmed animal meat.
Yeah.
For an animal that spent its whole life suffering in a horrible cage, in a pen, living in its own feces, full of fear, a mammal that has the capacity to love its young. I would argue that it is inarguably more unethical to go to the supermarket, tell everyone you love animals, go and pick up some supermarket beef in a package, not give two thoughts to the fact that creature has sustained that life for suffering.
Sure.
Consume it thinking, oh yeah, that's it. That's how I feel. And then with that same quizzical eye, look at people who consume balut and think it's some barbaric thing.
Yeah.
I think that in actual fact, we should all look at the way we consume products through a completely different lens. If that's animal products or not, I mean, there's ethical arguments to be made either way. I personally think we should try and source the most sustainable, most ethical foodstuffs we can. And maybe there's a way to do that involves animal products. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. I do think if we all reduced our meat consumption, if we all learned more about industries like the dairy industry, the meat industry, of course, the egg industry as well being one of them, then, better things would happen for the animals. And I'm sure that we're a long way off before that ever happens. But when you come to somewhere like the Philippines or anywhere that does have these cultural differences that, are worth exploring in my opinion. It's not like balut is this thing that they used to eat 100 years ago, and you got to go to a specific region or restaurant.
Right, and now it's like a look down upon practice like whale hunting that has terrible ramifications.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's eaten every day, every evening, on the streets, on every single corner around Manila and probably elsewhere in the Philippines as well. So if the question is, would I eat it again? The answer is probably tonight.
Well, I guess it also raises a little question about what kind of traveller that you want to be. You have an option when you're a traveller. Do you go to a place and wholeheartedly throw yourself into the culture culinarily in terms of what music you listen to? Do you meet locals, befriend people, have interactions, throw yourself into all aspects of a culture? Or do you bring some of your Western biases with you? Do you draw the line at, okay, well, I'm going to listen to Filipino music, but I'm not going to eat the kind of eggs that the Filipinos eat? Where do you draw your line? Where do your ethics begin and your cultural practices start and end? I think that it's really important to travel with this ornithological approach where you look at all the practices and make your own opinions from there. I think that's a bit of a serious note to end the episode of Tripology on, but it's that kind of flip-flopping between the enigmatic, the wonderful, the weird, the comedic, and the brilliantly insightful introspective that means we're the fastest growing travel podcast on planet Earth. And we want you to join those conversations. How can you do that?
To join the conversations, you can jump on our website, tripologypodcast.com, where there's a contact form. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, we've got Instagram.com. Yeah, it's at Tripology Podcast. There's a plethora of ways that you can get in touch, and we're working towards some very, very exciting stuff. Maybe not next week, but maybe the week after. We're going to have huge announcements that are going to shake the very fabric, the very ground of the tripological universe that we've created, and we want you to be a part of it. If you want to be a part of it and you think, God, this sounds like there's something big on the horizon, what if I get a part of it now as opposed to a little bit later? Maybe that'll come with some additional benefits. It will. Go to patreon.com/Tripology Podcast. Become a Patreon, join the community. There's a host of benefits on there, and some of them you really want to get on sooner rather than later. Fastest growing podcast, big things coming. Yeah, that's right. Become a Patreon subscriber today. It's better than if you become one next week.
And if you're worried about getting your money's worth, we're going to go off to the Patreon section now, which is called The Lost and Found, and I've got 3 little Filipino desserts just behind the camera over there, and we're going to eat them live on air.
24 hours early, and it's us eating a cake. I can't believe our luck. Let's go there right now, and we'll see you all next week.
We'll see you there. Bye.